So so what this is all about opportunity for us, right? Because now there's going to be 22. I think it's about 22 million devices that have to be changed in the U.S. Right? It's going to cost anywhere between 20 and 30 billion dollars for retailers to convert to EMV. So it's a huge opportunity for us. So what are retailers? They're going to be really, what options do the small retailers have? They have, so 3 options. The first option, you've probably been to a store where they take your card, they walk to a terminal, they swipe it, right? They hand you back the card, there's a receipt that comes out, sometimes you sign it, sometimes you don't. That's called a standalone terminal, right? Usually you see those in all your deli markets, they have an old cash register there, they punch in the sale, you give them the card, they're swiping it over here, you know, everything is like quick, quick, quick. That's called a standalone payments terminal. That terminal will have to be replaced with an EMV standalone terminal. So that's kind of one target, a standalone EMV terminal that just replaces the current standalone terminal. The second one you may have seen, you go to a store and they swipe the card on the POS terminal itself. Like like you see it on the side of a computer, they swipe the card. Okay, that's called integrated. All those PCs, all those machines have to be replaced, or they have to go to a standalone machine. So every time you see a retailer that's doing this on the side of a machine, even all those iPad POS systems you see, that you sign with your finger and all that stuff, gone. Those are all gone. They do not, that terminal does not exist. Those sort of tablet POS where you sign and swipe do not exist anywhere but in this market. You can't see them in Canada, go to Europe, you won't see them anywhere. Because this is not acceptable.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people on iPads think they're up to date.
They're not. So anytime you see those have to be replaced with an integrated solution. So those are the 2 options a retailer has. Either replace their POS or replace their standalone terminal.
You see a lot of those in bars and stuff.
Yeah, that's another story. I'm going to get into the restaurant and bar situation. That's a total different change as well. It's going to be the merchant may not take the card from the customer in a restaurant or a bar. You know how they say, hey, start a tab? Well, that's not, you go pay at the table, and they take your card away, and they go back, and they bring you back your card. That's all gone too. So every restaurant, bar that you're going to see will have to change as well, right? So what happened in that market in Canada, before we had what they call pay at the table, bringing a PIN pad to the table where you insert the card, you finish the transaction table, they made customers walk to the bar, insert their chip, or a counter or a reception area to finish the payment. Imagine being at a nice restaurant in Morton's, for example. Well, I got to go pay. You get up and you got to walk, insert your card, and make the payment on an EMV, standalone EMV terminal. Well, that's what happened in Canada because pay at the table didn't exist. Now in Canada, every bar or restaurant brings you a PIN pad to settle the transaction at the table. Has its own little printer in it, and you stick it in, you put your PIN, you split the check, you add your tip, put your PIN in, settle the transaction. So that means every single bar, restaurant, anywhere where you see sit-down table service, bar service, will have to replace their systems. Yeah, wow means amazing opportunity for us. Now, pay at the table isn't certified in America yet. They're telling us May, June, July of this year. But we have a pay at the table certified platform in Canada already. So that's one of the products we'll be able to sell. We'll sell a pay at the table option for retailers.
What are some of the strategies that they would use to catch somebody in that area? They were not compliant with the pay at the table, or?
Well, what they do is the banks send reps out, and if they, if they see a transaction that's happening where the card is taken away, they can suspend their merchant account. That's basically it. So if restaurants are still pulling the cards and walking away with the card from the customer, and if they're not even EMV compliant, there's an issue, but also they could have their account suspended for doing that practice in Canada. But I'm sure it's the same here. Because, you know, at the end of the day, that's the other way to do it, right?
But
Scan.
not yet, it's not yet, though, here.
It's not ready here yet, but it will, October 1st, the fraud will transfer to restaurants too. Doesn't mean the restaurants are exempt from fraud. They're gonna have a standalone terminal that they're either gonna bring to the table, or they're gonna have the customer walk to the table, to a place where they can complete the transaction. That is for sure. So all these processors, let's talk about that too, because technology is one. You know, what I'm trying to point out is that
I want to make sure we get these questions out because I think it's important to the audience later. They're gonna have questions. So Tyler had a question.
Just real quick, I just want to be clear about like how the cards work when they have questions. How does that work, like, and this is a little off the table for what we're doing specifically, but how does that work for them, like, with online shopping? Is it like when they have just a chip card and they're going to switch to that? Is it just like enter your PIN online? Or?
well, that's what they have already. MasterCard and Visa have. MasterCard has something called Secure Pay, which is an engine that most of the Canadian online merchants use now. So it's basically what they call a proxy. So you put in your card data, you require a PIN online. The US websites haven't implemented that, but pretty much everywhere else that has sort of EMV as a platform, they use either Secure Pay or Visa Sure Pay, I think it's called, I'm not sure. And you enter a PIN.
When do banks, do we already have those cards?
Well, if you're not, you're gonna have them. They're being shipped now. You know, we're transitioning now. Look, I mean, October 1 is the deadline, but, you know, I mean, they say they're gonna have about 50 to 80% of the cards in circulation by October 1.
Well, that is, okay, well, leading into the bank question. So, eventually, we're just gonna get a new card in the mail,
Mhm.
and then telling us your old card is gonna be activated and whatnot.
All your debit cards.
How about the small banks? Like small
Well,
local ones?
now, if the bank is an EMV compliant, then they're on the hook for the charge back, you see? So it's really, if you don't issue Apple Bank doesn't issue EMV cards, well, then if they issue regular credit cards, the retailer's off the hook, and the bank will pay the fraud. So it's in their best interest, obviously, to issue EMV cards, because if they don't, they're on the hook for it. So it's crazy times. It's probably the most amazing opportunity that's in front of us right now, to basically own, build a portfolio and build revenue. Here's another thing that's really interesting, and sort of the cause and effect. You know, what EMV in Canada, before EMV, the landscape of payments was very much like it is here. Right? You have your top tier processors, your Chase Payment Tech, Moneris, First Data, you have Heartland, Vantiv, Mercury. You have your top 6 or 7 guys.
Right.
Then you have all the ISOs underneath, right? Like all these evil payments and all of these guys that are, you know. So what happened in Canada, because fraud went down, the rates went down. So the actual processing rates dropped because the fraud, basically, the rates are high because they cover the losses, right? So the banks started to lower their processing rates. So much so that they started to compete. The main guys who had all these business partners underneath that were servicing them started to compete with their own channels. So I was a Chase Payment Tech ISO in Canada. So I would go to an account and I'd be bidding, they would be bidding against me, my own partner, to get the business directly. And how could I compete where I have to buy it from Chase and mark it up? So it wiped out pretty much the entire ISO market in Canada. So in Canada, there's 6 places you can get payment now. That's it. You can't go to little independent guys that can, you know, because you can't compete with Chase or Payment or, you know, FDMS or, you know, TSYS. You can't compete, right? They're selling debit at 2 cents. Who can compete at 2 cents? 3 cents a transaction? Nobody. So we had to change our business model in order to be.
Let's talk about that, because I was surprised when we spoke the other day. You said if we do see some crazy rate, like 1.35% or something, there's most likely to compete.
Listen, it's the biggest industry with the biggest scamming that's going on is payments. Because what happens? I bet you if you interview 100 retailers, 99% of them, or 99 of them, never read the statement or even understand what the hell is on there. Right? So these little, I call them payment weasels, that's what I call them. They go around and they tell you, yeah, 1.3% will, beat your statement. And meanwhile, they're hiding fees. They're charging you quarterly fees. Because the first 3 months you're going, oh yeah, great, 1.3, then you don't pay attention anymore. Right? And it's just full of really, I don't know, sleazy people in the industry. So that's going to change here for sure. Those guys are all going to be pretty much cleaned up because the banks are going to offer rates that processors are going to offer rates that are going to shut those guys out anyway. So you got to be very careful when you're selling it. People telling you they're paying great low rates, and take a look at the whole picture, and really see what they're actually paying for this service.
So what would you say in your expert opinion, because you've already gone through this in Canada, what's our window of time for this opportunity to be able to capitalize on, the businesses that we have access to now before everything transitions over and the banks have to move? How much time, in your expert opinion?
Well, the good news is that there's tens of millions of sites that need to be converted, and not one provider can do them all, right? So it's just impossible. So there's a huge market and a huge opportunity for us to be very successful with just owning a very small piece of the entire picture. To that point is, how much time do we have? Well, after October 1, what we saw in Canada, we saw like 3 months before the deadline, tremendous, and then we couldn't get equipment. Like there were no pin pads we could get. Like everybody ran out of stuff. I don't know that's going to happen here, but the supply may be an issue before October 1. And after that, we're still installing 2.5 years later. We're still installing EMV systems in Canada. There's still merchants that are not compliant. So I don't know how. To answer the window, after October 1, this is something we can continue to do. It doesn't stop on October 1.
We haven't had any conversation about who our RC7 is. We talked about background, but then and by the way, this is going to be private.
So
and what sets us apart from being like the ISOs that we know are going to go out of business versus us.
So as I explained, RT7 was a Chase Payment Tech, First Data, TD, Moneris, ISO. We were partners with all these guys. Okay. And we would go and build a relationship directly for payments with the merchant. Then the price competition started happening and we started to compete. So we decided, instead of becoming an ISO, let's partner with one main processor. And let's work with them and their team and to provide a service to retailers that kind of changes the way we're doing business as well. So we decided to partner with Chase Payment Tech directly in Canada and in the US. And we decided to change our offer. We said, Chase, give us the best rate you can give to the merchant. And then we will provide what we call a premium fee on top of that. And we'll provide the entire system to the merchant. He doesn't have to pay any upfront dollars. He doesn't have to pay anything upfront, no service, no maintenance. He has to buy the hardware, never has to own it, never has to worry about fixing it. And we'll install it. You collect the funds under this payment scheme and pay us, and we'll pay our salespeople and so on and so forth. So we changed the model. And when we made that change, we started to become very successful in terms of deploying our machines, franchise, single machine, mom and pops. Like we went from 10 or 20 a month in Canada to several hundred, because the merchant didn't have to worry about buying the hardware himself, finding a payments partner, servicing the equipment, finding the software to run his business. He came to us and we gave him everything. And you know what? He didn't have to write a check for it. So this is the model we're delivering in Canada. All you have to do is switch your processor to us. We'll give you the system, worry-free. Yeah, you may pay 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 basis points more, but you also may be paying less depending on who your processor is and how much you're actually paying. End of the day, you're gonna be secure, EMV compliant, and you're not gonna have to worry about dealing with all these different parts of the POS. I've been doing this a long time, okay? I've done tens of thousands of installations. I can tell you the number one issue always has been, who do I call? Who do I call when I have a problem? Well, you bought the hardware from eBay. It's not my responsibility, but who do they call? They call me, my company, because I'm the software. So every time something happens, doesn't have the printer breaks, the payments doesn't work. In the old days, I got the call. And I then had to say, you know what, sorry, it's not my issue. They don't like to hear, sorry, it's not my issue. They want help. They want service. When you tell them, sorry, it's not my issue, you might as well just turn off the software. They're done as a customer. So I had to change that whole process. I had to be the single point of contact. So I negotiated with HP. I negotiated with the payments provider. I negotiated with everybody in the sort of life cycle of POS. So that the merchant only has to call me. And we deal with it all. And that's why it works. This is unprecedented in the industry. Nobody has this offer. You may see free POS from Harbor Touch. You may see free this, free that. There is no, I don't like the word free. I hate the word free. Nothing is free. Even ours is not free. You're paid for it. That payments, that money that you're paying every month, that you're just paying for payments, we're going to give you some added value for that, right? So, and that added value is a POS system that gives you EMV support with worry-free, right? So that's the difference between what we're doing in the marketplace and what everybody else is trying to do.
One-stop shop.
One-stop shop, brand name equipment, none of this crap. We're using HP, Windows operating systems, Intel chips, name brands that everybody knows. HP has a network of on-site service. You have 6-hour on-site service in within 100 miles of any urban center. Your machine breaks. It's not about fixing it. They just come with a new one. There's no fooling around. They're not going to, they're going to be down for 2 or 3 days. No. They're going to be right in there. Printer breaks. Here's a new printer. So it takes all of that kind of fear of the POS